1.2.1.4 Exercise. Explore the Learn Sandbox. Summary. The module requires a sandbox which provides free resources without charging your personal subscription. The sandbox is exclusively for Microsoft Learn training, and misuse can lead to permanent access loss. Information in the module is owned by Microsoft and meant for educational purposes. In the exercise, you'll activate and explore the Learn Sandbox. You can interact through PowerShell or Bash command line interfaces or use Azure CLI interactive mode. Instructions for activating and switching interfaces will be provided during exercises to help manage the Azure environment. Interactive mode resembles an IDE and aids command line interaction with features like auto-completion. For Azure portal usage, a specific link ensures correct subscription and free exercise completion. More sandbox usage will follow in the module, including creating an Azure resource. Exercise. Explore the Learn Sandbox. This module uses a sandbox for training purposes, which gives you free resource access. You won't incur charges on your personal subscription when using the sandbox. The sandbox is intended solely to complete Microsoft Learn training, and misuse can lead to a permanent ban. Microsoft creates this lab environment for learning, with all information owned by Microsoft, specifically for their products and services. In the exercise, you will explore how to use the sandbox for learning purposes. The exercise instructs how to activate and work with the sandbox in various ways. Activate the Learn Sandbox. To start using the Learn Sandbox, click on the Activate Sandbox button. If a notice appears asking for your permission to create an Azure resource, make sure to click the Review Permission button to check the permissions. After approving the necessary permissions, you might need to wait a couple of minutes for the sandbox to become active and ready for use. Task 1. Use the PowerShell CLI. When the sandbox opens, it displays a PowerShell interface on one side of the screen. If you know how to use PowerShell, you can control your Azure settings with commands. In PowerShell, the presence of PS in your command line indicates that you are in PowerShell mode. To find out the current date and time, you can use the getDate command in PowerShell. Commands in Azure often begin with as, while getDate is a PowerShell command. You can use an Azure command to find out your CLI version. Task 2. Use the Bash CLI. If you prefer using Bash, you can switch to it by typing bash to access the Bash command line interface. In Bash mode, your command line will display your username along with @Azure, and you can use the getDate command to find out the current date and time. You got an error because getDate only works in PowerShell. The date command is used to show the current date and time on your computer. In Bash mode, similar to PowerShell, use as to begin Azure commands, such as updating the CLI with as upgrade. To switch back to PowerShell while using the Bash command line, just type pwsh and hit Enter. Task 3. Use Azure CLI interactive mode. Azure CLI's interactive mode makes using command lines easier by simulating an integrated development environment. In this mode, users can benefit from features like auto-completion, command descriptions, and examples. This mode is particularly useful for those new to Bash and PowerShell and can be accessed by typing as interactive. First, you'll need to choose whether to send telemetry data by typing yes or no. This is a simple step to determine data sharing preferences. Next, you should wait a moment for the system to fully set up. Once it's ready, type the letter A to see if the auto-completion feature is active. If not, clear your input, wait a little more, and try again. When you start, use the arrow keys or tab to finish typing commands easily. This interactive mode is made for Azure, so you don't have to type as to begin a command. You can still type as if you prefer or are accustomed to it. It's optional, not necessary in this setting. Try running commands like upgrade or version without adding as at the start. It should work the same way. The instructions imply that executing the commands should yield consistent results as prior attempts. To finish, use the exit command to exit interactive mode. Task 4. Use the Azure portal. You can use the Azure portal for sandbox exercises. Access the Azure portal through a specific link to use the correct subscription. This ensures the exercises remain free for use. In the portal, explore Azure services and resource groups. Continue. You're ready for now. We'll revisit the sandbox in this module to create an Azure resource.